I got all I want, and I got all I need, and I got everything. I got you and me. All I want.
We've agreed you're not going to touch the board.
I will not touch the board.
All right. Should I do my jingle first? Ready? Let's go. Marriage is the best. Hi, welcome to Marriage is the Best. My name is Peter.
And I'm Becca.
And this is our podcast about marriage. We've been married for about 9 years, and we're coming real close to 10. We're edging real close to that 10 mark. And we're super grateful for the marriage that we've had, and are looking forward to all the years that we're going to have moving forward.
We've had a lot of kids in those 10 years. We have had 5 children here on earth, and we had 7 that went to heaven, and we have 1 more growing in my womb right now as we speak.
It's kind of like a womb mate, would you say?
Definitely.
Currently?
I do.
Yeah.
It's not a very fair womb-mate, though.
Not fair?
Steals all my energy, doesn't pay for anything, doesn't contribute anything. Except for being cute.
Yeah. We'll see. I mean, the other ones have come out pretty cute.
I know that this baby will be cute. And also, I've seen the baby on ultrasound 3 times now. And
Oh, wow.
this baby moves like none of the other ones. And it's really fun to see.
Aw.
So this will be number 6. We have just about every variation of genetic combinations that our DNA combined can make. The children are all completely different from one another in looks, in personality. It just all of the ways they're so different from each other.
Our normal joke as we're having them was that they wouldn't even pass as cousins.
Yes.
That was kind of our catchphrase for how different they are.
Right. And we're 5 for 5 on that now. So I am curious to see if number 6 continues in that trend. I feel like the baby will be totally different. It just feels like that's just how we make kids.
Although, do we know that 5 is as unique as the first 4? He's so young. I don't know if we really know that he doesn't look just like Juliana or just like somebody.
Well, no, he could definitely, and all of them, honestly, as they get older, could grow to look a little bit more like each other.
Sure.
But personality-wise, we always could tell our children's personalities from infancy. Do you remember that?
I do remember noticing, and especially in hindsight, noticing little things that were coming out right away that we look back on and notice even to today.
I remember it even then. I remember almost all of them from babyhood being like, oh, we can already tell so-and-so is like this.
Yeah. I think number 2 is probably our strongest infant through development to now. She kind of represents a very strong correlation or lots of callbacks to her infancy.
Uh-huh. Yeah. So let's see. So far we have a 9-year-old, 8-year-old, 7-year-old, 5-year-old, and 9-month-old. And
Yes.
I am 13 weeks, almost tomorrow, 13 weeks pregnant.
Yeah, it's been a journey. Yeah, there's a good chunk. So we have the 4, kind of rapid fire 4, and then we've got the trailing 2.
Right. And people that I meet for the first time will say, wow, such an age gap between the
4 and 5.
the 2 youngest. Does it feel crazy to have started all over again? But in that time span is when I lost the 7, so it really did not feel like a 5-year age gap to me.
Yeah. There were a lot of babies in between 4 and 5.
Yeah.
And all of our miscarriages happened between those two kids.
Yes.
So unfortunately they were not, unfortunately they happened, and unfortunately they were kind of in a really difficult season that, we'll talk about in the future.
Mm.
We don't have a lot of time for hobbies or interests, but we do have, I guess we do have things that we're interested in. So for me, I think that podcasting is a major interest. I spend a lot of time, only because I have a good sized commute, but I do spend a lot of time podcasting.
Listening to podcasts.
Listening to podcasts. Yeah, that's a good distinction.
Mm-hmm.
I enjoy finances.
Yes.
Finances are fun.
You enjoy all the things that I don't.
Yeah, so there's a trend so far. Let's see if we can find a non-trend. I really love narrative, like stories, so movies and books and
I do like that too.
articles and
We have one thing in common.
so
That's what we've been hanging on for these last 10 years.
it's the thread.
This one, at least we like stories.
We do love stories. I think that I would loop people into the stories category because I love people, and I do the
I like
counseling.
them more.
Maybe it depends on the context, but yeah, you do like people more than I do. Yeah, I am a little bit more of an introvert, and so, but at the same time, I don't spend a lot of time in large groups of people, so I don't really get drained all that often from people because so much of my work and then home life is a little it's a little bit
It's
like
a
a large
group of people.
I suppose. So, but yeah, 1-on-1 I'm just fine. 1-on-2 is okay. 1-on-3 is hairy. So yeah, people, what else do I like? I kind of like making food, and food generally is an interest of mine, different kinds of food. This is another one that we don't jive with.
Not at all.
Look at
No.
us.
Opposite.
This is complementarianism. That's what we call it.
Yeah.
We're super complementary in our interests.
We are.
It's not exactly where you want to be complimentary. Games, another one that you don't like. I'm not trying to think of all the things that you don't like. I'm literally just thinking of the things that I'm interested in.
Yeah. And they just happen to be all the things I don't like.
Yeah. Well, moving on. Games, board games. Any other interests? Can you think of any interests of mine?
You
Probably
like
not.
music. That's huge.
Oh, jeez, yeah. Music is my life. I do love music. Music and podcasting almost for me kind of go in a similar category because it's kind of auditory and I'm listening. I do a little bit of audiobooks. I don't love audiobooks, but if I really want to look into something and learn about something, I'm probably going to listen to it on audiobook. So I'm very audio driven. Other than music, I think that's pretty much it.
Yeah, I think you've covered most of it.
Those are the big ones. There might be like small ones, like I guess
Right.
I kind of like video games here and there.
Sure.
Kind of like real estate a little bit. I'm interested in it. It piques my
Mhm.
interest.
Mm-hmm.
Like careers are pretty interesting to me, so I like learning about them. But yeah, so there's other small ones. Parenting is a lot of work. I wouldn't say it's a hobby.
Definitely
That's
not.
Definitely not a hobby. All right.
Yeah, no, I honestly have never had any hobbies. Growing up, never. Just I like to hang out with people, and that has always been my number one. Like if I have a break from the kids, or if I had free time in college, or if I wanted to do something fun in high school, it would be just hanging out with people. And I didn't even love the things that we would do, that we want to go bowling or whatever, like ice skating. I don't like any of those things, but I just like being with the people. So I just like being with people.
People fill you up.
Yes. And I just very much do not like being not with people. So
Adult people.
yeah, I like being with adults. when I get some time away. So that I do not have any hobbies.
I don't think that's true because you read more than I do, like significantly more. You've finished more books in the last year than...
I've only read like one book in the last year.
I don't think so, that's true.
Yeah, and this year, yeah.
Calendar year? Or like
our son was born this year, so I've only read like one book since he's been born. I've been like trying to read books, but I'm not finishing them.
You're not finishing
and I'm
them.
not reading much.
I saw you reading Sensible Shoes the other day.
Yep, that was the first time I'd picked that up in a long time.
Anyways, you do like reading, and it is a hobby of yours.
I do not do it much, and I have to force myself to do it right now. Because I'd rather just pick up my phone and scroll. But
well, that's a hobby of yours.
That's an addiction of mine.
Facebook is a hobby.
And it does not usually bring me a lot of joy. It brings me like, I should not have spent that much time scrolling.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, you're pretty good at flipping things. Would you call that a hobby or an interest?
No.
Because you're really quite good at it.
Might have been for a season, but the thought of doing that right now is like,
Well, so you're applying it to this moment. But in this moment, you're exhausted and you just put kids to bed and you just lived a day in the life of you. So it would make sense that you're not interested in doing these things right now.
Yeah, no, I have never had that many hobbies. I go probably in phases where I read more and then like don't read at all. I always kind of feel up for watching a show or a movie.
True.
But I try to not do that all the time.
Yeah. That's it. Yeah, you're interested. Yeah, shows, movies, stories, books, and people.
Yeah, and I like eating food at a restaurant
called Olive Garden.
The Olive Garden's my favorite for sure. I just drove past it today and thought I'm ready for some more chicken Alfredo.
Didn't you go last week?
I went not that long ago, and I said
it was last week.
I'm ready. I'm ready for some more. Baby wants more. So yeah, I like eating food that I did not make, and that is generally bland and that children like.
You have a very...
You don't have to defend everything. I am who I am.
Beautifully infantile.
Palate.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. All right, so there are some goals for the Marriage is the Best podcast. And the first one, maybe not the first goal, but these are in no particular order. So first one listed is have honest conversations about marital topics in order to inspire and normalize dialogue between spouses.
And they will be honest because they are not practiced. And I mean, this is the only one that we really had gathered much thoughts to think about what we want to talk about.
I wouldn't call them thoughts. I would call them bullet points.
Well, we thought through, or you thought through what we're going to say and why and when and stuff. But normally we just sit down and just talk.
Yeah.
So it's pretty honest.
The other thing about that is that honesty is one of your superpowers. Honesty and vulnerability. It really is. It's remarkable and sometimes shocking how honest and vulnerable you are.
No fear.
No fear. Number 2 would be actually more of a cultural idea, would kind of creating a culture or influencing culture toward valuing, prioritizing, celebrating, and strengthening marriage. Mm-hmm. That's definitely a goal. I think it would be cool to, in fact, a marriage that listens to us and hears maybe a skill or hears a conversation and is inspired or wants to celebrate their marriage or wants to have a similar kind of a conversation. Mm-hmm. So any kind of inspiration that moves our culture, even at large, toward love and marriage and valuing marriage, prioritizing marriage, and kind of rewriting some of the stories on marriage. Marriage can be the hardest, most difficult relationship that you have, and it also has the potential to be
the best.
Yeah.
And
there
maybe
we go.
even inspiring and reminding us to love our marriage, because we're not doing this from like a perfect place. Like, oh, we just love everything about our marriage and we're so good at it and everything flows perfectly and we've got great communication all the time. So,
I think that's the honesty piece of it.
yeah.
Because no marriage is perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Ours, very much not. But yeah, number 3, I think tell marriage stories. This kind of goes back to that inspiration idea, is tell marriage stories that inspire and encourage others via openness, vulnerability, honesty, and celebration. I guess I could have read number 3 as well as number 2, because we just talked about that one.
Mm.
But yeah, that is a goal. Tell marriage stories. We want to inspire and encourage others. Number 4 is give practical, real-life examples of challenges, conversations, conflict, success, and failure to normalize marriage experiences.
Mm-hmm.
So in normalizing marriage experiences, that would be an encouragement. If you hear a conversation that we're having, that you're having, or a struggle that we've had, that you've had, or a success that we're having that, that maybe inspires you, that's our goal, to present the story of marriage and to represent marriage, represent our marriage in such a way that may give that practical real life example. And then finally, we also would like to just encourage people to lean into their marriage to create sustainable systems. Sustainable systems is kind of one of my favorite things to talk about with couples. And so as I work with couples as a counselor, I am often talking about sustainable systems and finding those rhythms and finding those connections so that people can enjoy their marriage instead of be, overwhelmed by it. Mm. And sustainable systems is one of the most important pieces of priority. If you don't have sustainable systems, then somewhere along the line, something's going to go awry. And so,
how would you say that those can look pretty different for different couples? You have to find the ones, figure out how it works best for you.
That's a really good question. I would say that the specific principles,
the values might be the same.
I'm actually more thinking practical, like the practices.
Okay.
Are very specific and they're kind of known. Individuals in the field of marriage have kind of broken it down into a science, studied it in a lab, and came out with a ridiculous amount of knowledge and understanding of what makes marriage work. And from that, they were able to extrapolate, how to then practice it. And so marriage actually is a very much a known entity. It's not overly complicated. It is just very difficult. I would even call it simple. Marriage, the things that make marriage work are fairly simple. You maybe actually have heard of most of the things that make it work. However, it is very difficult to put into practice. That's why sustainable systems is so important, is when you know what makes it work, you then have to extrapolate that out. I said that word twice. You have to then practice it make it fit into your life.
So it's simple, not necessarily easy.
Simple and difficult.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So those are kind of the goals of the podcast. I think you're supposed to make like a witty remark here.
No, I made witty remarks throughout the whole goals list.
Oh, gotcha.
I didn't make them on every goal because I didn't want to be too witty, you know? That's just annoying.
Yeah.
So I just toned it down a little bit.
You're very charismatic with your wittiness.
I try.
Good job.
Not really, actually.
So we're going to touch... So our families, we come from broken families. My parents got separated when I was pretty young, early teens, before teenage years. And then they got divorced in my late teenage years, but we're separated the whole time. So I saw kind of brokenness in my in my parents' marriage, and then I also saw brokenness outside of that in my immediate family's marriage. It's just tons of divorce. It's kind of almost the story. It really, sadly, the story of my family is lots of divorce and then some alcohol. Those are kind of our major trip ups. I think that's one of the things that makes me value marriage the most is watching brokenness in marriage and then seeing a history upon history upon history of these different families in my extended family that ended that way. And that inspired me almost from a young age to really want to prioritize marriage. I thought about prioritizing marriage from...
You thought about marriage a lot.
I did. I thought about marriage a lot growing up. And it's continued to stick with me as an interest and something that I want to study and want to prioritize, even though I am much worse at it than I thought that I would be growing up when I was thinking about it.
And I'm not quite the wife you had imagined and dreamed about.
I mean, you're pretty much the one.
I mean, I am the one, but I just might not have been the one that you were dreaming of.
I'm not visual, so I didn't really dream of anybody.
No, you had like a list and you had written letters and you had like
that's true.
dreams and ideas and like, you thought that you wanted your wife to have like a really beautiful voice, like really beautiful singing voice. And you wanted...
Check.
Do you remember this?
Check.
You had like a list.
Check.
Of things that you imagined your wife would be.
Check.
Can't tell if you remember that or not, but I very much remember.
I mean, I think I did do that. I did a little bit of writing. I did a little bit of thinking. I did a little bit of, but I think the thing that I remember the most is watching the pain and suffering of alcohol tearing families apart and the pain of families being torn apart. And so I think that I had
resolved you in two ways.
Well, what I think
marriage and not to drink.
Yes, very much so. But I think that where I was going to go was, as a young person, I think I saw what I didn't want, and I remember seeing a lot more of that than really having any idea of what I wanted. So that was kind of the more of a major theme is don't do that. So, but yeah, I grew up somewhat poor, foreclosed on a couple houses here and there. So we had to move. We did move a little bit, and my dad was in ministry early on in my life, and then got out of that after the separation. Lots of siblings, 5 biological siblings and 2 adopted siblings. You want to tell us about your family? Be nice, nicer than me. You are nicer than me.
I had a very, very stable upbringing. I did not have a lot of divorce or separation in my family growing up, not until college and late college. I suppose some of my aunts and uncles started before my parents. But, really in college is when divorce started entering my family. And once it did, it was like dominoes. It was like this aunt and uncle, and then that aunt and uncle, and then that one, and then that one. And then suddenly it was my parents. And I thought that would just never happen. Never even questioned it. They had what seemed like a pretty great marriage growing up. And I mean, I definitely have always been pretty naive, so maybe some of it was just me not noticing things, but no, they really did have a pretty great marriage, or at least it seemed, and we had a very stable home environment. And so it wasn't until when we started dating that my parents got separated, and we were 20 at that time. And then, divorced right before we got married. And that shook my world quite a bit. And And, divorce is probably hard on kids of every age. But I think it was maybe particularly hard going into my marriage now, being shook over my parents' marriage. And it definitely put some fears in my heart and mind about my own marriage and what's safe and how do I trust and all these different things that I had to work through and still have to work through. So for most of my life and all of my childhood, there wasn't any divorce, and now there's a lot of divorce in my family.
Yeah, I would say that you idealized your parents' marriage. Would that be a fair way to say that?
I mean, I have no idea because I was a kid, so I don't know. But I have lots of memories of them holding hands and like all of us watching Family Friday movie nights and my parents sitting together and my dad's arm around my mom and at church or his arm around my mom and they worked together and my dad led devotions and they both tucked us in at bed every night and like so many memories of things that I would say like are signs of a pretty healthy marriage, of things of whether united, of them going on weekends together, of them taking dates. They didn't fight a lot, but they definitely did have disagreements, and they worked together, they worked as a team, just all these different things that I remember that are actual memories.
Yeah, and they were representative of, they informed how you felt about where they were and where they were coming from, and it made it even more of a shock when they started to fall apart.
Right.
Yeah. It was a difficult season.
Yes.
So yeah, basically right before our first year of marriage. So, yeah. So our hobbies and interests don't actually align all that often and all that much. And so that is one interesting thing. But one thing that really does align a lot in our relationship is our values.
Mm-hmm.
And that would include our politics,
Mm-hmm.
our religion,
Mm-hmm.
our views on children,
Mm-hmm.
our views on
Parenting those children.
parenting, our views on prioritizing our relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, friendship, I think, is up there.
Mm-hmm.
But like basically all of our core values really do come into alignment. And so I think even though we do find some differences in our hobbies and interests and just like a small number of complementary things, really the vast majority of the foundation of the marriage comes from how aligned our values are.
Our differences in hobbies hasn't actually come up all that much because we don't have a lot of time for hobbies. And we certainly didn't in our first 5-6 years of marriage when we just had lots of babies and toddlers. And so all we just did was take care of them and work together. And that's all we did. So I wonder what it'll be like when we're, empty nesters or something. But it doesn't mean that we didn't spend time together because we have always prioritized getting dates and we always have really enjoyed being together from the very beginning. And so, our differences in hobbies and stuff hasn't seemed to stop us from really enjoying being together, no matter what we're doing.
Right. Yeah, I think our favorite thing to do together is really just to sit and talk.
Yeah.
And that bodes really well for a lot of the sustainable systems that we'll talk about and a lot of the conversations that need to be had. Hard conversations, easy conversations, and podcasting conversations. So, yeah. Thanks for going on our journey with us. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out at this email and this phone number and leave us a voicemail. And if you do leave us a voicemail, we might throw you on the show. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. And yeah, thanks again for listening, and we'll talk to you later. Bye.
Bye.